In this video, I'm going to give a brief overview of what dopamine is, my story as it relates to dopamine addiction, and the number one principle you can take if you're starting to change your dopaminergic habits and try and become more productive or motivated. So starting with what dopamine is, it's a neurotransmitter in our brain and it has a lot to do with our motivation. So when our brain, when we engage in a behavior that our brain says, this is good for us, we want to do this more, then it releases dopamine in our brain and our body, and that feels good. It feels pleasurable, and that reinforces that behavior, meaning that our brain feels good and is like, okay, let's do this again. And that feeling, that memory of that feeling, then allows us to be motivated to do that thing again. And as we put effort towards those things, dopamine increases. And so how this kind of relates with dopamine addiction is that when we engage in things that don't take much effort, that dopamine is not created. And instead we just use up all this dopamine in our body and our brain, and we don't have much left when we use so much up so quickly with things that take little effort. So these are things like using different things on technology, commonly like social media, video games, non-technology things like substances or addictive food. These can all spike our dopamine, but don't give us or create more dopamine, and so they leave us in a less motivated state. And this is a big problem for the majority of the modern world today. And this is a problem I found myself in, as I'm 25 years old, so I grew up on the internet, like probably most of you watching this video, and my kind of main habit that I formed growing up from even before I can remember is playing video games. And I would play games like World of Warcraft or League of Legends, and if I could, I would literally spend all day playing those games with my friends. And I didn't really think much of it growing up. I loved it. Sometimes it got in the way of my family, but I didn't really care. I just wanted to play. And as I got older, I even got like a second monitor, and I would play video games while watching something on my second monitor, whether it be anime, Netflix, Twitch streams, YouTube. And so I was just blasting my brain with dopamine, and it left me with nothing else to do other things that took more effort. Things like exercising, studying. I never put much work into school growing up, and probably for this reason. And so it wasn't too much of a problem until I got into my first year of college, and I was paying for college, and I started thinking for the first time in my life, like, okay, what do I really want with my life? Like, what am I doing? And then I realized, like, I can't keep spending all my time playing video games if I want to eventually be independent, live on my own, or have a family. But as I started to try and change, I found it extremely difficult, and I didn't know why. And I didn't really know why for a while, that it was actually these habits that made it so much harder to do my schoolwork, to do things like take care of my body, and be disciplined. And that's when I realized I needed to really utilize different tools to make a change. And so the first thing that really helped me was actually just thinking about what I really wanted. And the thing for me that I realized was I wanted to create and build my own family in the future. I wanted to get married, I wanted to have children, and I wanted to be the type of man that could provide for a family. And I knew that if I kept along with my current habits, I would never reach that goal. And so that started on my journey, my motivation to change those habits. And it was still extremely difficult. It took me multiple years and a lot of other tools and learning about psychology to get to the point where I am now, really 5 years later from when I started, to where I feel like I'm in control of these habits. But that was the first step, was having a clear vision of my future that I wanted to create. And that's the principle I want to share with you, that I think anyone can take, is you want to make sure that you have a clear vision for the future, thinking a few levels deeper than whatever your immediate goal is with changing these habits. So I'll give you an example. So some college students may say they want more motivation to study, and that's great, but that may not motivate you enough to actually stop scrolling on social media and start your homework. What is more motivating is thinking a little bit deeper about why you want to have motivation to study. Is it to pass the test? Okay, maybe, but why do you want to pass the test? You want to pass the test so you can pass your class, so you can graduate, maybe so you can get a job and be independent and be financially free. And what does that look like for you? What does that life look like years down the road? And for me, that's what really motivated me, because changing these habits is not easy. It's very difficult, especially if you've been doing them for so many years. And so you need a really good reason, a really good why to make those changes. And so a little activity that you can do to think about this, I took this from an Andrew Huberman podcast. It's called the Perfect Day Exercise. He didn't make it, I forget who made it, but it's just thinking about what your perfect day would look like and all the different aspects of it, where you'd be in the world, who you would be with, what you would be doing, spending your time doing for work, etc. And then you can kind of work backwards and think about, okay, what do I need to do to get there? And if you want some accountability, comment down below one part of what you realize. What is your vision or your goal for changing your dopaminergic habits? And if you're wanting more tools, if you're wanting to hear more about my journey, the steps I took after creating my vision to overcoming dopamine addiction, then subscribe to my channel. This is going to be the first of many videos, and I look forward to sharing more with you.